So this is Michelle Morgan with the Mind Right Game Tight segment on the Sade Champagne Show on Grind Hard Radio. Today's guest is Brendan Garrett. He's entering his sixth season on the coaching staff with the California Lutheran University men's basketball program. In college, Coach Garrett was a four-year player at Cal Lu from 1999 to 2003. In his senior year, he was voted the team's Hard Hat Award winner, which is given to the player with the best work ethic. Coach Garrett served as a graduate assistant coach for the Cal Lu Kingsmen after he finished his playing career. While completing his graduate work, he assisted with all aspects of the program, including on-the-floor coaching, film exchange, scouting, film breakdowns, recruiting, camps, equipment management, and study hall. He was also selected as a National Camp Counselor of the Year by Camp Business Magazine in 2004.
Forgot about that one.
Coach Garrett served as the top assistant men's basketball coach at Nebraska Wesleyan University. He was one of the youngest people in the country to hold that position when he got hired in 2006. Coach Garrett comes back to Cal Lu after serving as the head boys basketball coach at Hueneme High School in Oxnard, California. There he took over a program that had just 3 wins in the previous season. In his second season, not only did the team almost quadruple the win total from his first season, but he also guided them back to the California Interscholastic Federation, the CIF playoffs, for the first time in 4 seasons. Hueneme is a lower socioeconomic school, so Coach Garrett was hard at work off the court. He drastically increased the fundraising amount by almost 6 times in his first year. Hueneme also saw an increase in the program's overall grade point average, no academic ineligibility at the varsity level, and a 100% graduation rate during his tenure. Coach Garrett also led the direction of the summer youth basketball camps, which saw an increase in enrollment from 18 to over 160 kids during his time. So welcome, Coach Garrett, to the Mind Right Game Tight segment. We're glad to have you on.
Hey, it feels good to hear all that stuff. I need to start doing this more often with you.
You got to be reminded of all those little mini victories you have from where you come from.
I tell you, you're getting my mind right. You're going to make my game tight here just by the intro. So I appreciate it.
No problem. So just going back to, even in the intro talking about Hueneme High School's boys basketball team, and you're part of a program that completely turned itself around. So I wanted to ask you, as the head coach at that time, can you describe the process that caused the turnaround in producing more wins, as well as also academically in the program as well?
I think just setting a precedence of, we had a certain kind of player that we wanted that had, a certain mentality of wanting to come in and work and improve and represent something bigger than themselves, right? So the program, we wanted to use as obviously a way to, have a chance for guys to compete basketball-wise, but to represent the institution, Hueneme High School. And you wanted to do it not just on the floor, but off the floor. And we wanted guys who wanted to be completely committed to that, which meant getting it done in the classroom, staying out of trouble off the court, and understanding the continuity of how, if we represent this program well, aside from wins and losses, just if I can be competitive, I can play hard. If I, then it will kind of leave a legacy for people coming behind me, and can open up hopefully some doors and some opportunities, for some guys that were coming behind. And also, if they can, establish just a certain mentality and like a certain, work ethic on the floor, being a competitor, being good in the classroom, being good away from the court in the school, then that might open up some doors for themselves for some guys that have been through the program that are alumni, and possibly open up opportunities for them, like for jobs or volunteer activities or anything else, that's out in the great big world. So we made sure to grab hold of some guys early on that wanted to be committed to that, and guys that, although might have been talented, that didn't want to be committed to that, and they showed that they were upfront with us and told us just verbally, or they showed us with their actions. We had to kind of remove those guys from the program and sacrifice a little bit early on so we can establish, that kind of clientele, so to speak. So, that's basically how we did it. And then just stayed committed to that, stayed working, and gave our best effort, coaches and players alike.
And how do you kind of set that precedent, like coming in as a new coach, the new head coach into a program that might not be used to winning, and the mindset of, they have to hold themselves accountable as a student athlete as well. It's not about just coming in here and making it about wins. What do you say at the beginning of the season or during sixth period, or, while you're getting the kids together for tryouts? Like, how do you set that tone verbally, and then also like with your actions as well?
Yeah, like you just said, it just being consistent and following up and making not one guy any bigger than the program, including the coaches. And so it started with the coaching staff, not only talking the talk, but we had to walk the walk. We also had to and just hold guys, accountable. Like some of the more talented ones, I think we set a tone when we had to part ways with some guys that were more talented. Mm-hmm. And that all the guys in the entire program and in the school knew that we meant business if we were going to part ways with some guys like that. And so, and we weren't doing it just to set home. If they were committed to what we were to do on the court, in the classroom, then we were going to stick with those guys and harness that. But we just had to be consistent with that and hold everyone accountable across the board. And just as coaches, we couldn't just talk the box and hold ourselves accountable. We carry ourselves on the court and away from the school, and try to hold that for our players and students.
So kind of going back to what you're saying, how you had to sometimes just to remind the players that might have been more talented or by skills. Did any of them that you had to release from the program, did any of them ever want to come back to the program when they saw like the change that was coming?
They did, yeah. We always kept the door open just because, it's supposed to be inclusive, right? Especially in high school, especially in the area Wainimi is in South Oxnard. So we always want to give guys a second chance and opportunity to correct it. And that's what life is really about, right? Like it's about, trying to correct errors and mistakes, and some guys make some big mistakes and they regret them. And most often I would probably say there was probably only one or two instances of probably a handful where guys, we let back and they still continued to make some of the same mistakes, but most often guys will make the corrections they need to make to be a part of something. A lot of it too is, Michelle, this is the game night, especially the rival game. So I always call it the rival effect. And so once they get to and at the time in the Pacific View League, our rival was Channel Islands. And when kids would come and see a huge jam-packed gym, and I'm looking around because I can just sense it, you got a couple thousand fans at this game and everyone's cheering for these players. It's usually after that game they came back and wanted to rejoin in the spring or something like that. And so, yeah, that happened quite a bit. And again, I always think you got to give guys second chances and keep the door open because, they're teenagers and we were all that age once. And I don't think, there's not too many perfect people in the world. And so, and I'm guilty of making some mistakes along the way as well. So I'm glad that people, allowed me some chance to give me enough rope to hang myself at the same time, were there to kind of catch me when I fell. So
yeah, that's very important in making sure that as athletes and as people in general that we surround ourselves with people understanding that if we're being challenged, it's a part of it means that they care about you. They want to see you do better. It's not just be stagnant or it's okay to be where you're at. It's when you're being challenged. And and setting those rules and structure in place is because you want to see them improve and be better. And it's great when they can recognize that even if it takes a rival game for them to see it, at least it took something for them to, internalize it themselves as, I want to be part of something greater. I want to be better in general as well. And then going towards so now that you're, coaching at the university level and you're recruiting, what are the things that you look for in a recruit besides just natural, talent and skills? Are there other components or traits that you look for in a player when you're recruiting?
Yeah, absolutely. Before I get into that question, there's one other thing too, that I think that is a big draw for us. We demand a lot out of guys, on the court, off the court, and we put a few demands, almost like an extra, taking basketball with us was almost like an extra class because we would have them do little mini assignments, nothing too much, and report back whether it be make 25 shots or keep track of your progress on a chart. in season, out of season, or, we give them grade checks or just little extra things like write a thank you note and have somebody sign it to confirm you did that with like one of their family members. And so, so we demanded a lot out of them, but we also took care of them. So we got them like really high quality gear. We took them on trips. I remember we took our varsity group to San Diego, and we were able to connect with Kerry Colbert, who was with the Denver Broncos at the time. He's an alum that played in the NFL for Wainimi. And he got all the kids tickets, and we coordinated that with the San Diego basketball tournament in December. And so, we give them a lot of opportunities in season, out of season. And so we demand a lot out of them, but at the same time, we do a good job of trying to take care of them, give them rides home when they need a couple extra bucks here and there to, if they're short and need to buy a meal on a game day or something, we try to be there to provide that. So that was the other thing I think that players missed, for that or whatever. But to answer your question about what we look for is it's pretty simple. We obviously, talent is first. As you know, in college, you got to have talented players, to give you the best chance to win. But beyond that, we try to do, our coaching staff try to do some extra homework. So we would ask AAU coaches, we would ask, I would call like kids names who weren't on a reference list. So we would get a hold of somebody at the school and ask about the kid. A lot of times if we went to go visit the kid at the school, we would talk to one of the ladies in the office when we would tell them we're there to see, Johnny so-and-so, and we would ask the lady in the front office, what kind of kid is he? And those people in the front offices are usually, they can give you some extra inside information if the kid's kind of a jerk or, he's mistreats people off the court. That kind of tells us a lot of what kind of teammate he might be or how much buy-in he'll have or not have. We would call like random teachers on their schedule, on their class schedule list, like an English teacher here or there, and somebody that they wouldn't recommend. And so if there was a lot of people that were, or, more than one person that was telling you that the kid was, wasn't a high character kid, then that was usually we would pass on a kid who's more talented than that. So yeah, talent first, and we would also take guys that maybe were a step too slow or not as talented as a top prospect, because we knew that those guys would usually improve at a faster rate. So yeah, it was kind of a combination of each of those, but character was a big part of it. Mentality, work ethic. And if some of those things were red flags while we're recruiting the kid with somebody along the way, like a coach, again, AAU coach or a teacher, a family member or a friend or something like that, then we would obviously pass on a kid like that. So, got it.
And then in terms of like, just talking about character, what are the things that you feel as a coach make, a great teammate? You've been a teammate, you've played basketball, and then now as a coach, we see it from a different lens, when we're not necessarily like as a player on the team. But what do you feel like are the characteristics that make up a great teammate?
I just recently, last summer, read a book by John Gordon called The Energy Bus. It's made a big impression, just, and it's a lot of stuff that that I think that I've read in other motivational books and professional development books and some things like that, but that one's really made an impression on me. And so I think one of the best characteristics you can have as a teammate is to be an energy giver, as he quotes, basically somebody who's positive, somebody who's upbeat, even when things are going wrong. The worst thing we tell the kids in camp all the time when we start doing different competitions, the worst thing you can do when somebody makes an error in one of the drills or competitions is to start being negative with them, because it doesn't help the situation. And so he has two phrases in the book, John Gordon's Energy Bus, where he talks about an energy giver, somebody who's a positive and upbeat, somebody you want on your team or your bus, so to speak, and then somebody who's an energy vampire, who sucks the energy out of the room, somebody who don't want on your bus. And so, I think one of the most important characteristics as a teammate is to be an energy giver, somebody who's positive and upbeat. And that doesn't necessarily mean in practice, where you're not competitive and challenging your teammates, and going at them. And I think that's the other characteristic you need. If I had to rank the top two, it would be an energy giver, somebody who's positive and upbeat consistently, and then somebody who, not afraid to challenge guys in practice. If somebody's, slacking off one day, not afraid to kind of get on them a little bit. You don't necessarily have to be negative when you do that. when you're trying to motivate somebody, but
Right.
but not being afraid to call them out if they're not, doing what they're supposed to, so our team can be better. So I think if you're, you have those two things, I think those are probably the most important, to be an a quality teammate.
I agree. I definitely think as a player and just watching basketball now as like a fan, you can see and you can tell how being an energy giver actually helps, your team. It creates a sort of momentum and it helps build, the people on the court. And I always say everybody has their own role on the team, so not everyone's going to play the entire game. Some people don't play, any minutes. But I say, the teams that I've been on where that had the teammates who didn't play much or they came in at the end of the game, it's like we needed them to be, the ones that encourage us, because there's players where we get down on ourselves and they remind us of like, no, you're doing great, you're great, you got it, because sometimes at that point we're so tough on ourselves as the players. Like, it's great that we have those energy givers because they kind of refuel the mindset to believe
yes,
again.
Agreed.
So that's very, very important. So yes, I love that. So what is an important lesson that you learned as a player that you now emphasize as a coach?
Oh man. I think if I had to say one, let me give a general one, kind of right along the lines with that last response. I think if you can just learn to be an energy giver in a lot of your other aspects in life, like whether it be at the work site or within your family or within your group of friends, I think you're always going to be somebody who wants to be included in things, right? And so it's going to open up opportunities, I think, in relationships as well, with significant others. You want to be an energy giver, and I think the relationships where that's a two-way thing, I think, they have a better, stronger chance to be long-lasting. With friendships, the same thing. I don't think anyone would admit ever wanting to be around people that are negative. And don't get me wrong, like I joke with my friends, we clown around with each other and, make fun of each other just in a real basic format, but nothing like derogatory or anything like that. But somebody who's just constantly pulling you down or telling you something about, like, if it's about a possible job or an aspiration or a big life change they want to make, if somebody's constantly being negative, I got to imagine there's not anyone in the world that wants to be around that. I used to tell our players all the time is you want to be low maintenance. And what I mean by that is you don't want to be somebody who is constantly kicking up dust, figuratively speaking, right, at work, that is constantly somebody we have to cater to, constantly somebody that, that always seems to have a problem or an issue or an uncomfortable, is you want to be somebody who's low maintenance, that just shows up, works hard, that we don't have to worry about. We know that it's always going to give a consistent effort, and I think that's, one of the bigger lessons that I think you can take from it. But if you can learn to be an energy giver just all the time, right, and low maintenance, I think that most organizations, it'll make you more hireable. More people gravitate towards you, and you'll have more relationships and friends, longer lasting, significant other relationships, and within your family as well. I think it's a good reminder because I'm guilty of this, sometimes joking around too much with my family, with just making fun of them, but you got to kind of check yourself a little bit and say, hey, am I going too far here? Or, am I starting to be an energy vampire, so to speak, or am I being an energy giver here? And so I just think that that's one of the more important ones, just to tie into that one. But other than that, I think a general point is just to try to take as many lessons as you learn on the court from, like, just being a great communicator, right? Just in what that, and everything that means, without getting too detailed with that, bringing a strong work ethic every day consistently. And if you do that consistently, I think, you'll have a lot higher percentage chance to be successful in life in anything you do. And I would also say, when things don't go your way, I think to try to stay positive through that, because that, Dr. Reverend Martin Luther King always says, right, the true test of character is, where you stand in moments of conflict and controversy versus moments of content. And, when things are going your way. Anyone can be happy when, everything's going well in life, but it's when those moments aren't going well, when the other team is on a 10-0 run, and you get down by 20 points, can you still try to be positive and encouraging and believe that we're going to come back from that? And so, I think, so handle adversity. I think those would probably be the three general ones that kind of stand out. But if you can take a lot of life lessons from from basketball and try to apply them to your life in any area, I think you'll have a chance to be successful. So, but those would probably be the biggest three: energy giver, work ethic, and how you handle adversity would probably be the biggest three I think you would take.
Yeah, and then listening to you explain it all, it kind of ties in on as to why energy giver is so important, because it kind of puts everything into perspective, because it's not about just giving energy to others and your teammates. It's about being able to give that energy to yourself. So, when the adversity hits, like I need to be able to, reinsert that energy into me. I can't wait for, a teammate, or I can't wait for, a coach to see it. I have to be able to develop it on my own, because we're in these groups where, there's 10, 12, 15 players, and it's about, communicating with myself, understanding that my mind, and being able to give that energy to myself, because if I'm feeling depleted, now I need high maintenance for someone else to kind of replenish me. And it's like, okay, but, be aware of your own self, and that in order to gain whatever it is that you want, it's going to be the effort that you put into life. Anything that you put in is a result of the effort that you gave, and that energy has to come from within as well. Yes, we have support from different areas like mentors, coaches, teachers, parents, our friends, significant others, but it all has to begin within. So it's about really giving that energy to yourself and that belief to yourself, and then you're able to fuel it and create a community of energy giving at all times around you.
Yeah, so. Agreed. Well said. And by the way, I'm quoting this John Gordon book because I haven't read your recent book yet. So I'm hoping to read that and start quoting that real soon too.
Oh yeah, definitely. I'll be looking forward to that. I'll have to get you on for another interview for that then.
Okay. All right.
So what does mental toughness mean to you? And then, why is it important? And then how do you teach that? So it's a 3-part question. So what does mental toughness mean to you?
So I think mental toughness just can be characterized into what we used to define for players, and what we still do is just toughness in general. And it gets a lot of what we're saying about some of these lessons that you learn, and one of the best people that's defined it, I agree with, is, I don't know if you've read it. It's Defining Toughness in Basketball, and I can't remember if that's the exact title, but it's by Jay Billis, who's a famous basketball analyst from ESPN, and he wrote a book on it, and he clearly defines it into detail as what toughness in basketball means, and he breaks down like different areas of the game, from individual to team defense, team offense, being somebody who's on the bench, being a starter, being a guy who comes off the bench, guy who has a limited role, and all the things that you can do. And basically, how it ties into my previous answer is just, again, what kind of work ethic do you bring, what mentality, and how consistent are you, is how I would define toughness. Somebody who's tough to me can do that on a daily basis without having to be, overly motivated. And again, like I was saying earlier, somebody who can be low maintenance, somebody who doesn't require a lot of attention and high maintenance, and where you constantly have to get on. I think also somebody who, secondly is right what I was saying. Somebody who's kind of an energy vampire, I think, would be, another one. I think how you handle adversity is another defining toughness thing. So again, not when you're scoring 20 a game, you're playing the most minutes, and your team is winning by 20, but how you handle if you're not shooting the ball well that night, or and coach decides not to play you very much. And your team is getting beat, can you still stay positive and believe and encourage others in those moments? I think kind of defines really what toughness is. So I like the word mental toughness. I use it a lot, but I really just try to limit it to one word, and it just all comes down to just being tough. And I think those 3 general topics, I think kind of come to define. There's a lot of other ways you can you can talk about it too, but I think it always comes back to those. Somebody who is consistently a high work ethic, somebody who's just an energy giver and who can be positive even when things aren't going their way, and then how you handle adversity. And then from those you can spin off and get into a lot of things, like somebody on the court who dives for loose balls, right, consistently, who doesn't take plays off on either end of the court, who's not afraid to guard the best player, who's not afraid to to come off the bench and change roles in the game. Off the court, somebody who's when if they're feeling tired or hungry, or, did they use that as an excuse to be in a bad mood and mistreat people in their family or their friends? Then I'm just trying to think of like specific examples for that, in other ways. Do you use, and then when things aren't going your way, right? So like maybe you get in an argument with your significant other, and then maybe you just shut down and you decide, I'm not, I'm just going to start mistreating people around me and like stop calling, so-and-so, or use that as an excuse to be rude to the lady up the street at the corner market, right? And because I got in a fight. And so I think toughness is defined by people who, can just overcome that stuff, and where the mental side comes in is where you have to constantly flip the switch in your own mind and be able to kind of overcome that and just say and decide, I'm not going to be negative, I'm high maintenance, I'm not going to let these things that are going wrong in my life or in the game right now to be negative, and I'm going to consistently stay positive and be an energy giver and do some of these things. So that's how kind of I would define it. I don't know if I answered all three parts in that, but
well, I have a question in regards to the mental toughness. So we, like how you talked about, how do you handle adversity, when you're down by 20 or whatever it may be, or maybe you're just feeling like you're having a bad game. So are you able to put, in practice, do you have scenarios that you kind of set up to prepare your team for those situations?
Yeah, so there's special situations. They call them special sitch, to like SIT, right? It's the common coaching vernacular for it. But special situations, where you have a team who's down 7, 2 minutes to go, and the other, your other team is up 7. And so I like those special situations because I think, how you handle the failure or when things are adversity is a skill, but also how you handle success, right? So if you're up 7, or even after you win, how you handle that. Are you too boastful? Do you win with grace, or, can you be a good sport anyways? But yeah, those special situations you put guys in, and then it's always, I always like to not interject right away after let the buzzer sound and just kind of observe every player and see how they're going to react, especially early on in the year when you put them in that position. And then you'll know who needs a little more support with, how to handle adversity or success. So special situations, just any competition in practice. We're really big on in our program, and even when I was a head coach, is trying to make as many things competitive in practice as possible. That way, guys, especially early on, if they're not handling success or failure very well, then we have to coach them on it. So by the time you get to, midway through season, guys are just so competitive and then know how to handle both that ideally, when we get up in a game or down in a game, or if we have a big win or we have a tough loss, guys will, not get too high, on a big win or too low on a loss, and know how to handle those different situations. And so, so I just put them in that position to practice special situations, and then just making every drill competitive, making them compete, and always having a winner and a loser, because you're not gonna. It's really, as you move through the real world, right? You're gonna get beat on some things, and you're gonna win some things, right? You're gonna get that job, or you're not gonna get that job, or you're gonna get that sale. If you're working for business, so you're not going to make that sale, and it's going to go to another salesman, right? So, learning how to handle that stuff, I think, is pretty important. So, just the overall structure of practice and then specific situations is how we did it. What I think should be done.
I agree. You have to have those 2-minute drills or whatever you want to call them in practice, a special situation, so that, like you said, you want to see how you react, and as a player, you want to know how you're going to react as well. Because, how you practice is how you're going to play. And it also helps you, this is where I need to improve. It teaches you, about your teammates as well. So
true.
And that's what's most important, is for us to be accountable as to paying attention to who our teammates are. I can talk a little bit about it. As a point guard, I have to know everybody's, strengths and, weaknesses. And it's like, if they're not going to catch a bullet pass, then that's my fault for throwing that to them. Because
Agreed.
that's not their strength. So it's understanding those things, and that's what's great about those special situations. So I'm glad that you're coaching and you're implementing that into your practices as well. So what are the skills that you're currently developing or like to develop as a coach right now?
I think just they always ask the question, who motivates the motivator? Coaches are the motivators. So I'm always looking for new books, new documentaries, something like that, in any sport or in any kind of other realm outside of athletics to try to, make me a better motivator, make me a better teacher, and make me just overall a better leader, right? So, like, what are some things I can incorporate into, aside from basketball sometimes? So for instance, this last season, we started doing these team building things. What's the name of it? It's like the theme of what we were doing was named after one of these shows where they compete. It's like Survivor, I think is what it is.
Oh, okay.
And so we worked collaboratively with our men's volleyball coach, and we created it. And he's pretty good at creating these situations. They do it with their volleyball team, and where we put guys, we match them up. The coaching staff match guys up who don't usually interact or hang out with each other off the court, and we force them to work together on different things. And we did that periodically, probably every 2 to 3 weeks throughout the season this year, and which is something we added to help team bonding, camaraderie, get guys to communicate that that don't usually do, and just try to get the team closer, get the coaching staff closer. Force the coaches to be more observant to our players on the court, off the court, and and try to give it's ultimately to give our student athletes the best overall experience, because it's such an important time in their life too. So that's what we did, and so we're always looking for little things like that to try to spice it up, so to speak, or and then for us individually to improve. And I think when or if any teacher or leader or coach ever doesn't have the desire to want to improve, then that's, it might be time to get out of the business or the profession. But that would be such a contradiction for us to require improvement or constant improvement or motivate guys to want to improve, as players, and then not do it as coaches,
Right.
and improve our craft. So you want to see? Oh, okay. That's my son.
Come on over. So can you give us an example of one of the Survivor days of team bonding?
Yeah.
It sounds so interesting. I'm curious as to how this works.
So one of the challenges we had was, if you've seen the show, and I don't see the one reason I forgot is I don't watch the show. I know of it, and I've seen a couple episodes, but so what it is these series of challenges, and each day challenge we had, there was like these 3 different obstacles they had to go through. So one of the obstacles, guys had to look under all of these different buckets to try to figure out what other bucket they're supposed to. So they would get one clue, and it would lead to them looking under a different bucket to find the next clue. And we would put them in partners, and we had 15 or 16 players. And so there was 8 groups, of partnered up,
Mm-hmm.
and they were competing against each other to get the fastest time to get through all 3 obstacles. So one of the obstacles would be something like that, to try to figure out some sort of clue or riddle to get through it. And then that would lead them to getting their ticket or their pass to go to the next competition, which was something that usually had they had to, one of the times we had this block of real nasty looking cheese, and it had all the ingredients that was in it, and the guys could choose to eat this, or they could go and choose to eat this other nasty looking cheese that they called what was the name of it? It looked like it was like a bloody monkey brains or something, and so they first had to decide which one of them would be willing to do it, and then which one they actually wanted to choose to eat and kind of take on a challenge. So a little bit was getting them out of their comfort zone, introducing them, like in this case, to some foreign foods that they might not like. One of the cheeses was really popular in Greece or something like that, and so kind of expanding their horizons a little bit that way. But and then after that, there was usually some sort of physical challenge where one time and then we incorporated a riddle. So they had to kayak across the pool, but they had these 3 different characters. They had a fox, a chicken, and a rabbit, but they had to take the fox, and we just had these little paper cutouts where they had to move the fox, but they couldn't leave certain the chicken and the rabbit on the same side, because the rabbit would eat the chicken. So they had to strategically figure out how they could get all 3 across without leaving the one that would eat the other one. And so got them to think a little bit. They had to work together, and it was stuff like that. So it was challenging but simple. There was these other puzzles that they had to try to figure out, and they had to work together on what if we move this green piece here, and would we be able to complete the puzzle? And so things like that. We usually each day would have like 3 different challenges, and we probably did 4 or 5 of them throughout the season, so one every like 3 or 4 weeks to get them through it, and just to
that sounds like so much fun.
It was. I thought it was cool. And the guys really enjoyed it too, And so, it was good. It was good. We thought it forced them to, to build a bridge with some of the guys that they weren't normally, and it really made our team really close, and was, I think, a big reason why we had such a successful year, 20-7. So it was good.
And don't you feel like that kind of goes hand in hand, like how the camaraderie is, like how the communication is, the team? It's not saying that you have to hang out with each other like 24/7, and be best friends, but that camaraderie kind of dictates, how great your season will be, right? I think it kind of goes hand in hand with the team bonding.
Yeah, when I was a player, agreed wholeheartedly. We really established that. So my freshman year at COU, we had probably one of the more talented teams in the conference, but we finished 5th in the league. The next year, our coach decided to remove 3 or 4 of these guys from the team, and that freshman group that I came in with, there were 6 of us in the class, and we just really took control of the locker room, and we just decided, hey, we know what mentality we're going to be, a bunch of energy givers, although I didn't know that term at the time, and we're not going to allow anything else, and we're going to be encouraging, and we know we have to have camaraderie, and like you said, not all of us on the team hung out 24/7, some of us more than others, but when we came together, we knew, how we were going to be, and we knew that we had to pick each other up. We saw each other out and about. We were never going to give each other the cold shoulder, ignore each other. If somebody needed a hand, even if it was a teammate I didn't hang out with much, we were going to help them. And so I just think that environment really was a reason why we had so much success, because that next year, preseason polls came out. We were picked to finish 6th in the conference, and we won the league. And then the next year, we should have won it the next 2 years, but we came up short and dropped the ball in the last couple games in conference. But we at least had a chance to win. That's I think most people don't get that opportunity to at least have a chance to be knocking at the door. And so we had that 3 straight years, and a lot of it was was because I think of that camaraderie, as you said, that we established. So that's so important. I agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah, and then it not only goes just for like being great in the sport, but it's like a life skill, like being able to be open-minded to like, okay, that person might not at first glance be someone who I want to hang out with, but now that I get to know them and I see how smart they are and how supportive, and you learn their different characteristics as to who they are as a person, you're like, oh, why was I thinking that about them? So it's like even having those experiences with team bonding, it teaches you for just real world, because a lot of the times if we're, if they don't look this way, they don't know sports, and it's like, well, we don't really have nothing in common. And it's like, well, how do you know that? And how can you benefit from that? And how can you build a bridge that'll last longer than just this basketball season? It can last a lifetime. So that's what's important about it too, is keeping that open-mindedness as well.
Agreed, wholeheartedly. Yep.
And very, very powerful. So with coaching, I understand that it's a lot of it is about the X's and O's. But, from what I see, which is very special about you, is that you care about the student athlete as a whole, in sports and in life. So
thank you for saying that. I'm glad that's noticeable. And I seriously mean that, because, because it's coaching in college, you just, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you just get so focused on getting the most talented players. Even in the high school level, it's getting so competitive. Coaches are getting fired for losing, now. But anyways, I'm glad you said that, because that's what I really try to be about, and that's what I'm trying to represent. So that's good. I appreciate you saying that and observing that about me.
Yes, I definitely have been observing that about you. To me, it's evident because I pay attention, and it's clear, and I can see the passion behind it. So my question is, where does that passion come from, where it's not about we won this many games and we're conference champions, where it's more about, the student athlete as a person? Because not all of them are going to be playing, basketball or any sport forever. Like, they're going to go into life and have to succeed. So where does that passion come from being about the whole student athlete?
I've been really fortunate to play for some really good coaches who have been all about the student athlete, starting with, it goes way back to, and I hope I don't leave anyone's name off of here, if anyone ever sees this. But I had Jerry Parker as a youth coach. I had Daryl Samuel. I had my high school coaches, Doug Collins and Tom McCollum. And all of these guys I'm naming were all, player first. They held us accountable, worked us hard, but, really loved us up and took care of us beyond basketball and cared about our development in other areas. And, and they really, all of these guys I still have relationships with, and if some of them, like Daryl, followed, a lot of the guys that he coached in elementary school up through college and would show up to our games randomly unannounced. And so that was special, and that said a lot to me. But Tom McCollum and then obviously my college coaches, Rich Ryder, Jeff Daines, and Bob Massell, all and David Stringer, who was an assistant for a couple of years I had. But and again, I hope I'm not leaving somebody off of there, but they were all about the development of players beyond the court. So I had no choice but to pay it forward, like it was done for me. So that's where it comes from, and then I think when you get older, you understand more the importance of that, the impacts that, all the guys that are playing under your tutelage are going to go on, and be in society and how you're affecting society now, right?
Yeah.
What kind of product are we putting out there? And then the other big moment for me was, having a son, and just, how how would I want my son to be treated and how would then be cared about as a student athlete? He's into sports because he's around it a lot, so he's probably headed that direction, although we won't force it. But I guess I'm kind of forcing it indirectly, right? Like just by keeping them around the environment.
Come to my practices. Yeah.
Yeah.
Come to all the games.
So that was another big moment for me too, like to be about that and because of how I would want somebody to coach him and what I would want their mentality to be. So I would probably say those. Got it.
And what piece of advice would you give to a student athlete as they progress through their journey of not just in sports, but in life in general?
That's a good one. Go back and listen to this whole interview. No, I'm just kidding. No, if I had to end it with something, what piece of advice? Just have a high work ethic and be low maintenance, and I think no matter if you are the star player and have a high work ethic and there's not, you don't require a lot of attention, or you're the, player who comes off the bench or the player who's playing hardly any minutes, no matter what your role is, I think if you learn to do that, you're going to have a chance to be successful, not only on the court, but again, like we were saying earlier, in a lot of other areas in life. You're going to be more hireable. You're going to be, more people will gravitate towards you, so you'll have more friends. You'll have, a better chance to have a longer lasting relationship with the significant other. And, obviously, with, on the court, you're going to have a better chance to have teams and coaches that want you with them. So that's what I would say to that.
Are there any books? I mean, I know you mentioned some books that that you've read recently, but any books, articles, websites that you would recommend for student athletes to, to go seek out? Because it's not about just, paying attention to what's put out in front of you. There's a lot of messages that, aren't publicized, like books and articles and websites that we can learn as to, what it means to be an energy giver, to learn more about, what does that really mean? What does it really mean to be mentally tough? What does it mean to really be great and succeed in sports? But most importantly is like carrying that over to life. Like, do you have any gems that you can share with people as to, where they can get more information on those things?
I do. So I already mentioned John Gordon's Energy Giver. That one's kind of a longer read though, but then there's another one that's a little bit easier to read, not as long, but the one I mentioned about Jay Billis. Jay Billis, he wrote a book on defining toughness in basketball. And again, I might not have that exact title, but if you look up Jay Billis and defining toughness, you'll find the book. It's a really, really well outlined book of how he defines toughness, which ties directly into mental toughness. Great book. Another one that I read that I wish I would have read in high school, it wasn't written yet, and I forget the author, but it's called Mind Gym. Mind Gym, like Mind, M-I-N-D, Gym, like a basketball gym, G-Y-M. And another book I read a few months back and just finished up was a book by Christian Moore, and it was called Resilience Breakthrough. Resilience Breakthrough by Christian Moore, and that's a dynamic book. It talks about flipping the switch in there, from negative to positive, and how we're in control of that. It was a really good book. But those ones are the most immediate too. And there's a whole number of other books I like to read a lot, especially like I was telling you. But but those are off the top of my head, ones that I think a high school athlete, student athlete could read, and it's not too difficult or won't take too much of their time, would probably be some of those.
Yeah, but you're going to get a lot of information and knowledge from it. So as a student athlete, always remember, I know sometimes it's like, oh, I don't have time. I have school, sports, and if you're working and other responsibilities, but there's so much knowledge to be found in books. And that's what I love about books, is because, there's so many of them, and that's where like the hidden gems are at, for us to empower ourselves and, what is it? Give ourselves that energy, be that energy giver for ourselves, so we can help empower and like pass it forward, just to like what you're doing, Brendan, in terms of like you got that mentorship young and now you're paying it forward. And it's the same thing that we can do at any age, is, continue to gain information and continue to pay that knowledge forward as well. What are the social media sites that we can, continue to learn more about your coaching journey and to stay connected with the Kingsmen as well?
Well, it's I didn't want to say this at the beginning and interrupt too much, but my social media is Coach B Garrett, and I use it mostly for coaching. My Facebook is just my name, Brendan Garrett, and my Twitter is, what is my Twitter? It's Brendan Garrett, one word. Brendan Garrett, one word. Yeah, I gotta remember the handles and all that stuff. But we had a recent update too. I didn't want to cut you off because you were reading the introduction, but I shouldn't just to be consistent. Our coaching staff will not be back at CLU this year. Our head coach, and I just recently decided not to be back on, but our head coach that was the interim this last year, who had been a top assistant for 21 years, did not get rehired, and then I had a decision to make, and so I'm looking to make a move here pretty soon. So I'll be hopefully updating here in the next month or so to find out what the next coaching move will be. But hey, we're going, like I said, I'm going through some adversity right now with coaching, and so we'll as good of a year as we had, and we felt that we should be back. Our head coach wasn't asked to be back, and then I decided not to stay on with the new staff. So, so I got to kind of put my money where my mouth is and kind of walk the walk now, right? Dealing with the adversity. And so, the good thing too is that I've actually had this last month, give or take, haven't had any coaching or recruiting responsibilities. And man, I've just been hanging out with my son and my family a lot. And it's just been really, really good. It's been really, really good.
Nice.
So my son is just getting into T-ball this year. He's 4, and just been hanging out with him and my wife and getting to see some people this time of year I don't normally get to see as much, and with friends and catching up with. And it's been a blessing, to say the least, and it's been refreshing too. Yeah. So it's almost, I think a lot of things happen, good or bad for a reason, and I think this is one of them. And I think, there's always some silver lining to bad things that go wrong in life too. So it's been really good, as much as I love it. And I'm definitely not done coaching. That's for sure. So I got a couple options on the horizon here. And so we're going to see here real soon where we land. So
that's awesome. Well, I'm happy to hear that. And I look forward to, where you'll be taking yourself on your next journey, and, who you'll be leading, so to speak, as you move forward in your coaching journey. So thank you for sharing that. So yeah, I appreciate that. And I really do look forward to what your next step is. Just hearing what you're saying in terms of facing that adversity, and then it also being refreshing. It's cliche, but everything happens for a reason. And it's kind of like refocuses your mind, put things into perspective, and it allows you to stay true to yourself as to who you are moving forward in life, because it's more than basketball. Like, you have a son, you have a wife, you have all these other things going on. So I find that it's very important that you get this time, because, maybe that time wasn't allowed in the past. So kudos to you. So true. Great job, Brendan. I appreciate you being on.
I appreciate, man, I just feel, listening to you speak, I feel so uplifted. I enjoyed this. I appreciate hearing you, and it's kind of reaffirming, a lot of the things, especially you being through it, and I don't, we really don't get to take time, right, enough. I don't, at least I don't, and probably because we're coaching and we're all busy writing books, right? Like you are, but where you get to sit with somebody else after their experiences and talk about what are some lifelong lessons that you've learned, what are some of the important things that you've taken from that, and I appreciate you offering this out and taking the time to do this, And it was it was beneficial to me too. So, and really, really good. So you're like my new energy giver. So I appreciate it. I feel like I can go and climb the Empire State Building now.
You can do whatever you put your mind to, Brendan. I believe in you.
That's right. Wait, game tight. Wait, mind right, game tight. Wait, how am I saying?
Yeah, mind right, game tight. When you're mind right, your game's tight.
That's right. All right. And here's my son here. Say hi. Say hi.
Hi.
Put your face in it. Get up there. Here you go. Get it. All right. There he is. All right.
Well, thank you, Brendan, for being on the Mind Right Game Tight segment on the Sade Champagne Show here on Grind Hard Radio.
Oh, great. Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.